We've all seen motorcycle clubs on screen. Leather jackets, loud engines, rebels chasing the open road. But today, we're not talking about movie myths. Today, we're riding straight into the ganglands, the real, brutal world of outlaw motorcycle gangs, where loyalty is absolute, brotherhood comes before blood, and independence is enforced at gunpoint. This is a world ruled by patches, territory, and violence, where respect is earned the hard way and weakness is punished without mercy. In this episode, we're breaking down one of the most ferocious outlaw conflicts in American history, the war between the legendary Hells Angels and the Sons of Silence. Fasten your helmet. This is the Hardest Outlaw War. Hells Angels, the expansion of an outlaw empire. What sparked the conflict? Why did these rival clubs turn entire cities into war zones? And what role did law enforcement play as the violence spiraled out of control? Before the war began, before bullets started flying and clubhouses burned, we need to rewind to the origins and rise of these two infamous motorcycle clubs. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club exploded in popularity in the post-World War II era, drawing in men who shared a deep mistrust of authority, a hunger for freedom, and a love for the open road. These were veterans, drifters, rebels, men who didn't want back into society. They wanted their own world. By the 1960s, the Hells Angels had expanded rapidly, planting chapters across the United States and pushing their reach far beyond American borders. Their name became synonymous with the outlaw biker lifestyle, aggressive, confrontational, and unapologetically defiant. Their winged skull insignia became one of the most recognizable and feared symbols in the criminal underworld. As their numbers grew, so did their reputation. The Hells Angels were linked to a wide range of illegal activity: drug trafficking, extortion, weapons dealing, and sustained violence. Their open hostility toward law enforcement only added to their mystique. They weren't hiding. They were daring authorities to stop them. To many, the Hells Angels didn't just represent a motorcycle club. They embodied the very idea of outlaw culture. Sons of Silence. Quiet beginnings, brutal ambitions. The Sons of Silence Motorcycle Club was founded in 1966 in Colorado by Bruce Gale, the Colonel Richardson. While the Hells Angels were already infamous, the Sons emerged quietly during a growing national obsession with motorcycles, rebellion, and outlaw identity. The early members bonded over riding, brotherhood, and a shared rejection of mainstream society. Like the Hells Angels, they embraced the outlaw code, but they operated with a lower profile. That silence was not weakness, it was strategy. In the years that followed, the Sons of Silence expanded steadily, establishing chapters across multiple states. While they didn't chase attention the way some clubs did, they developed a reputation within law enforcement circles for organized criminal activity, including drug trafficking and coordinated violence. Their insignia, a skull adorned with a Native American headdress, reflected their roots in the American West and reinforced their intimidating image. Quiet, calculated, and territorial. A powder keg waiting to explode. Since the 1960s, outlaw motorcycle gangs have been a persistent nightmare for U.S. law enforcement. Operating across both coasts and deep into the American heartland, these organizations became deeply embedded in the criminal economy. They smuggled drugs across borders, ran weapons, enforced territory through violence, and engaged in everything from contract killings to low-level street crime. Their presence cemented their place in American mythology, immortalized in films, television, and books. But the real story was far more brutal than anything Hollywood portrayed. At the center of the coming storm was one primary catalyst: territory. The war ignites as both the Hells Angels and the Sons of Silence push to control key regions, especially profitable drug routes. Their ambitions collided. Pride, reputation, and independence left no room for compromise. The rivalry escalated quickly. What began as tension transformed into open hostilities, street confrontations, bombings, ambushes, and attacks on rival clubhouses. The war between the Hells Angels and the Sons of Silence became a symbol of the wider conflict's tearing through the outlaw biker world. Loyalty was absolute, independence was sacred, and violence was the language everyone understood. When tensions finally boiled over, the streets became battlegrounds. Shootouts erupted, knives were pulled, explosives detonated. This was no longer a rivalry, it was all-out war. Both clubs unleashed waves of violence in an attempt to dominate and destroy the other. Innocent bystanders were dragged into the chaos. Neighborhoods turned hostile. Cities felt the pressure. Law enforcement struggled to contain a conflict that seemed to regenerate faster than it could be suppressed. The violence didn't stop at street corners. Clubhouses, symbols of identity and power, became prime targets. Arson attacks and bombings became weapons of psychological warfare. Each strike demanded retaliation. Each retaliation escalated the conflict. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about humiliation, dominance, and revenge. Law enforcement steps in. As the bloodshed intensified, police agencies launched aggressive responses. Clubhouse raids, mass arrests, constant surveillance. Federal and local authorities attempted to dismantle leadership structures and disrupt criminal operations. Some critics argue that certain enforcement tactics, whether intentional or not, only amplified the conflict, pushing clubs further underground and hardening their hostility. The war evolved into a tangled web of crime, retaliation, surveillance, and secrecy. Each move answered with another act of violence. The cost to ordinary people. The fallout wasn't confined to the clubs themselves. Entire communities paid the price. Residents lived in fear. Businesses suffered. Once quiet towns gained reputations as battlegrounds for biker violence. News reports filled with burned buildings, crime scenes, and shattered lives. The war between the Hells Angels and the Sons of Silence didn't just scar the outlaw world. It left permanent marks on the cities caught in between. And long after the smoke cleared, the question remained. When gangs go to war for power and territory, who really pays the price? In scattered moments throughout the conflict, community leaders, local officials, and grassroots activists attempted to step in. They called for restraint. They pleaded for an end to the bloodshed. Meetings were proposed. Messages were sent. Warnings were issued. But their voices rarely reached the men holding the guns. The war between the Hells Angels and the Sons of Silence had taken on a life of its own. Pride, revenge, and territory spoke louder than reason. And once violence becomes currency, peace is the hardest thing to afford. The legacy of the war. Although the open warfare eventually cooled, its shadow never truly disappeared. Today, the Hells Angels and the Sons of Silence are no longer locked in a visible, headline-grabbing conflict. There are no public declarations of war, no front-page shootouts. But beneath the surface, the tension remains. Unspoken, unresolved. Old scars still mark the landscape. Closed clubhouses, damaged neighborhoods, and lives permanently altered. Within both clubs, memories of that era still circulate, passed down quietly like cautionary tales. The legacy of the war lives on as a constant reminder of just how far these rivalries once went, and how quickly they can return. Did the bloodshed ever truly end? As the years passed, the ferocity of the conflict slowly burned itself out. The cost had become too high, not just for the clubs, but for the communities trapped in between. Law enforcement pressure intensified. Prison sentences stacked up. Longtime members disappeared into cells, graves, or anonymity. Both the Hells Angels and the Sons of Silence faced a harsh reality. Endless war was bad for business, bad for survival, and bad for the future of their organizations. What bullets couldn't settle, exhaustion eventually did. In the aftermath, both clubs underwent changes. Leadership shifted. Internal structures evolved. Some insiders claim that the war forced both organizations to reflect, not out of regret, but out of necessity. Their goals, methods, and public image began to change, even if their identities never truly softened. Conclusion. And that's the story. The brutal, blood-soaked chapter of outlaw history known as the war between the Hells Angels and the Sons of Silence. A conflict fueled by territory, pride, and power. A war that scarred cities, reshaped organizations, and left behind consequences that still echo today. Because in the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, even when the fighting stops, the damage never fully disappears. Here is the Hells Angels history. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club is one of the most famous groups and easily the largest motorcycle club in the world, with a membership of over 6,467 chapters in 59 different countries. You might be wondering what makes this motorcycle club so special. Well, there are several reasons why anyone would want to join the Hells Angels. While a love of motorcycles is easily one of the most common motives, a sense of belonging, especially in an infamous club once shrouded in an aura of mystery and respect, is another. From a distance, the Hells Angels seem so cool, and it's easy for many to be enticed into wanting to join. However, joining this club isn't for the faint-hearted. Since many do not make the cut, becoming a full member of the Hells Angels can take a really long time, sometimes spanning years. To become a member of the Hells Angels, candidates are first expected to be true motorcycle enthusiasts. They must also own a valid driver's license and a motorcycle of over 750 cubic centimeters, as the average member is expected to ride at least 20,000 kilometers a year in strict formation. Candidates are also required to drive US-built motorcycles, with Harley-Davidson, Indian, and Victory being the most common brands. Prospective members who have applied to be law enforcement officers, such as prison guards or police, are excluded from the club. Child molesters are also not allowed. The initiation process starts with the candidate passing the above criteria. Once that is out of the way, the candidate, now considered a prospective member, enters the stage of being deemed a hangaround. As a hangaround, prospective members are invited to meet older club members at some club meetings, and this stage could last for a long time. If the hangaround still shows interest at this stage, they are then deemed an associate. They remain classified this way for a year or two. After these years pass, an associate is reclassified as a prospect and is now allowed to fully participate in some of the club's activities. However, they do not have voting privileges since the initiation process is still underway. If the prospect proves they have what it takes, they are then upgraded to full membership or full patch, which is the last phase of the initiation process. The full patch refers to the club's four-piece insignia given to its members. This includes the death head logo, two rockers, a top rocker with the words Hells Angels, and a bottom rocker showing the country, state, or charter location. Rectangular MC patch beneath the wings of the death head signifies motorcycle club. Prospects are only allowed to wear the bottom rocker along with the MC patch. The final stage of becoming a full member begins with the voting process. A prospect can only become a full member or full patch when they are unanimously voted in by all full members of the club. Hence, a prospect is often required to travel across chapters in their country and introduce themselves to other members. Voting becomes easier once these members have gotten to know the prospect and have vetted them. The prospect must receive 100% of the votes, as a single vote against them means the prospecting stage continues until they are fully voted in. Once they have been voted in, prospects are required to reaffirm their loyalty to the club, and the Hells Angels rocker is finally awarded to them as the final part of the initiation ceremony. At this stage, known as being patched, prospects become full members. Full members of the Hells Angels are recognized by their infamous insignia, the full patch, but this remains the property of the club, not the member, even after the initiation process. The club's official colors are red lettering on a white background, leading to the nickname the Red and White. Members wear their patches on leather or denim jackets and vests. Some members wear an AFFA patch, meaning Angels Forever, Forever Angels, indicating lifelong membership. Another patch consists of two Nazi-style SS lightning bolts beneath the words Filthy Few, worn by select members. According to the club, This patch is a type of merit badge awarded to members who are first to arrive at and last to leave a party. However, some law enforcement officers allege that this patch is worn by members who have committed or are willing to commit murder on behalf of the club. In some cases, members may wear patches that signify their rank within the organization. These small, rectangular patches display the titles of the members in red letters on a white background. Common titles include President, Sergeant at Arms, Treasurer, Vice President, and more. If a member is ejected from the club or chooses to leave, they are required to return their patches to the club. Members are expected to pay dues that finance burials and motorcycle runs. Attendance at club meetings and motorcycle runs is also mandatory. Contrary to popular belief, most Hells Angels members are not drug addicts. The club prohibits intravenous drug use, and many members are known to be fitness enthusiasts. According to Jay Dobbins, an investigative agent who went undercover and infiltrated the Hells Angels from 2001 to 2003, the club has strict rules concerning interactions with women. Wives or girlfriends of members are strictly off limits, and violations of this rule are met with severe, often violent, consequences. Dobbins also mentioned that members are not allowed to speak to one another while wearing sunglasses. Additionally, members must remove their riding gloves before shaking hands. Prospects are forbidden from patting a member's back or touching the Hells Angels patch, with severe consequences for breaking this rule. Those who leave the club on bad terms have all possessions related to the club taken away from them, including the removal of tattoos that indicate club affiliation. Prospects, along with members' girlfriends and wives, are allowed to wear the number 81, which stands for Support 81, with 8 representing H and 1 representing A. The Hells Angels do not have an overall president. Instead, the club is governed by regional officers representing localized chapters at monthly meetings. These chapters have a degree of autonomy regarding minor policy changes and member discipline. Rankings in the club's organization include president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, sergeant at arms, and road captain, each carrying out significant duties. Responsibilities within their chapters vary, and regional officers are divided into 2 groups. The first group comprises those who attend the West Coast Officers Meeting, also known as WESCOM. The Westcom group is charged with conducting the policy actions and affairs of the Hells Angels chapters in the Western United States. The second group includes those who attend the East Coast Officers Meeting, or ECOM, which governs the chapters in the Eastern United States. Although the Hells Angels' founding location was in San Bernardino, California, its unofficial founding location eventually moved to Oakland, California, under the leadership of Sonny Barger, who succeeded Otto Friedli as the de facto national president. This shift made the Oakland chapter one of the most prominent and regarded as first among equals due to Barger's reputation. The Oakland chapter has the largest membership of any chapter in the United States and is responsible for major decision-making within the club. Any other motorcycle club wishing to be affiliated with the Hells Angels must first apply to the Oakland chapter for membership and be monitored and approved by them before being granted membership. The Hells Angels' traditional motto is Angels Forever, Forever Angels. They also have other slogans, such as, when we do right, nobody remembers. When we do wrong, nobody forgets. 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead. And when in doubt, knock them out, the latter coined by New York City chapter member Vincent Big Vinny Girolamo. Joining the Hells Angels is far from easy. Prospective members often spend years on a wait list and devote their remaining years as full members to the club. The Hells Angels are not a casual, recreational group. For many members, joining is one of the best experiences of their lives. But leaving the club is a different matter altogether. Members can only leave if they are expelled, as there is no concept of retirement, except in rare cases where certain members are allowed to depart. Still, some have taken the daring step to leave. One notable example is George Christie. I felt we became the people we rebelled against, and that's exactly what I told them at the meeting when I left, Christie said. At one time, we would interact with all the clubs up and down the coast, and by 2011, we were fighting every major outlaw bike club in the United States, plus law enforcement. That's where some people lost perspective of what the initial intent was of the whole outlaw lifestyle. It seemed more military, like an army fighting another army. Christie was a Hells Angels leader for 35 years out of a 40-year membership. He was drawn to the outlaw biker lifestyle as a kid in the mid-1950s when he first saw a long-haired, denim-jacketed biker riding through the streets without a care in the world. Christie described that moment as life-changing. What truly fueled his interest, however, was an incident during high school when his principal accused him of cheating because he scored highly on an IQ test. Christie, who did poorly in school, thought, "If this is a polite society, no thank you," as he left the principal's office. After high school, Christie joined the Marine Corps. When he was discharged, he bought a motorcycle and started hanging out with other biker groups, such as the Satan Slaves and Question Marks, though his ultimate dream was to join the Hells Angels. By 1976, Christie had become a full patch member, and soon after, he rose in rank, founding the Ventura, California chapter in 1978 and even carrying the Olympic torch during the 1984 Los Angeles Games. Despite being a high-ranking member, Christie also worked for the Department of Defense. In 1978, his co-workers discovered he was a Hells Angels leader, a fact that came to light during a brutal conflict with a rival group involving fights, shootings, and bombings, which led to his resignation. Trouble followed Christie. He was later charged with orchestrating a murder-for-hire plot involving a leader of the Mexican Mafia prison gang. While in prison, Christie learned that rival clubs did not fight each other behind bars, which motivated him to push for peace on the streets. By the time he was acquitted in 1987, Christie had already started negotiating peace between rival motorcycle clubs. His efforts seemed successful until the 2002 Laughlin River Run, an annual motorcycle rally in Nevada, where a brawl between the Mongols and Hells Angels left 3 people dead. By 2011, the Hells Angels were embroiled in conflicts with nearly every major outlaw motorcycle club and law enforcement. Christie wanted the wars to end, but others did not share his vision. "I felt that groups were fracturing off, doing their own thing, if you will. It was tough," he said. "I decided that if I stayed in the club, it would strictly be ego-driven. I didn't want to be the guy who used to be a Hells Angels leader." In 2011, Christie made his decision to leave. He walked into a club meeting, announced his departure, removed his patches, and laid them on the table. His final words to his former club members were, "We have become the people that we rebelled against. And I'm gone." While Christie argued that he followed protocols and formally quit the club, it appeared that attempting to leave was a mistake. He was soon accused of being an informant, and his status was changed to out bad, meaning he was no longer in good standing with the Hells Angels and could not have any relations or contact with other members. In essence, he had been excommunicated from the club. Christie claimed he was shamed on social media and faced accusations from people, including strangers. The sense of kinship and community that had initially spurred Christie to join the outlaw biker lifestyle was stripped from him simply because he chose to leave. In an interview, Christie was asked why being out bad still seemed to bother him. His response was, "Being out bad with no contact in the outlaw motorcycle world is like a stigma. They don't want people interacting with you. They don't want people talking to you. Club members, who I was friendly with after I left, had their memberships in jeopardy if they communicated with me." He continued, "When I left, it kind of reminded me of a divorce. At first, everyone wanted to be amiable. They weren't happy about my decision, but they understood it. As things progressed, it became aggressive, and it was hard to take. The phone rings and you pick up, and it's one of your former brothers telling you you're no longer a friend to us. That's my whole life because I didn't have many friends outside the club. It was a hard pill to swallow." George Christie wasn't the only one to suffer this tragic fate after leaving the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. "My name is Jay Dobbins. I'm a retired undercover federal agent, and I infiltrated the Hells Angels," said Jay Dobbins, who infiltrated the Hells Angels between 2001 and 2003. Dobbins, a former football player and athlete, decided to join the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms (ATF) after surviving a critical shooting during an operation in 1987. By 2002, When the war between the Hells Angels and the Mongols was at its peak, federal law enforcement launched an undercover operation called Operation Black Biscuit. Dobbins, posing as a gun runner and debt collector, went by the name Jay Davis and was known to gang members as Jaybird. Dobbins staged a fake murder to gain the Hells Angels' trust. A law enforcement officer posed as a Mongol's biker, covered in lamb blood and brains, and was laid in a shallow grave for photographs and videos. Dobbins mailed the bloodstained Mongols patch to the Hells Angels, impressing the leadership so much that they immediately voted him as a fully patched member of the Mesa, Arizona charter, although they later denied this. Unfortunately, as Dobbins moved up the ranks, the lifestyle began to strain his family life. I had an argument with my wife. At one point, I came home after being away for an extended period. I walked in like Jaybird Davis walks into my house, and she's like, "You cannot be gone and come here and treat me and our kids like we're street people." Despite acknowledging that the Hells Angels could be dangerous, Dobbins admitted to respecting some members. After his true identity was revealed in 2004, the Hells Angels felt betrayed and directed their threats at his family. The plans to inject him with HIV, gang rape his wife and daughter, and kidnap and murder his son were uncovered. The ATF downplayed the threats, claiming no one had forced Dobbins to go undercover. Even when an arson attack occurred at his Tucson, Arizona home with his family inside, the Bureau didn't take the threat seriously. Though his family survived, their home and belongings were destroyed. Dobbins filed and won a lawsuit against the ATF in 2014. He later wrote a book, No Angel: My Harrowing Undercover Journey to the Inner Circle of the Hells Angels, which became a New York Times bestseller. The book detailed the Hells Angels investigation and its impact on his career and life. Despite the tragic events following his departure, Dobbins now runs a company focused on law enforcement training. Finally, there is the case of David LaBrava. Unlike others who faced hardship after leaving the Hells Angels, LaBrava left in good standing. Known for his role as Happy Loman in the FX series Sons of Anarchy, LaBrava was a real-life member of the Hells Angels. Initially hired as a technical advisor for the show in 2008 to ensure accurate depictions of a motorcycle club, he was later given a role and portrayed the hitman Happy Loman. LaBrava stayed with the Hells Angels until 2019, when he announced his departure via an Instagram post. "I want to say, I am no longer a member of the largest motorcycle club in the world, the Hells Angels MC. The only club I'm a member of now is the human race," he wrote. He added that it was his own decision to leave and that he was no longer a patch holder, considering himself a civilian. Unlike others, LaBrava's exit was amicable, and he has had no negative experiences with the club since. Non-bikers might not understand the allure of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, but motorcycle enthusiasts are often in awe of the club, eager to join. This respect is linked to the club's storied history. According to the Hells Angels official website, the first club was founded on March 17, 1948, in Fontana, San Bernardino, California. Before then, various motorcycle clubs existed independently. Otto Friedli, a World War II veteran, was credited with founding the club after breaking away from the Pissed Off Bastards Motorcycle Club due to a feud with a rival gang. Another theory suggests that the Hells Angels was founded on November 15, 1951, by Dick White in San Bernardino. White was said to be a member of the Redlands Roadrunners. The club attributes its name to Arvid Olsen, an acquaintance of the founders who served in the Hells Angel Squadron of the Flying Tigers during World War II. The club's official colors, red and white, and its charter, allegedly drawn up in 1950, reflect this heritage. Chapters began to emerge across California, operating independently. The San Francisco chapter formed in 1954, followed by North Sacramento in 1956. Sonny Barger took over leadership from Friedli and created the Oakland chapter in 1957, uniting the chapters under common bylaws. The Hells Angels expanded beyond California, opening an international chapter in New Zealand in 1961. On July 30, 1969, 2 London chapters were formed, and by 1973, they merged into the London Charter. Canada followed in 1977 with a chapter in Montreal, expanding to other parts of Quebec. However, the Hells Angels didn't quite succeed in taking over the Quebec biking scene without interference, as there was a violent turf war that left over 160 dead, 300 injured, and over 100 bikers incarcerated. By the end of the 70s, the club already had charters in Australia, and in 1984, Rio de Janeiro had its chapter, making it the first South American country with a HAMC charter. By 1993, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club had spread across continents and was launched in Johannesburg, South Africa. Turkey became the first Muslim country to have a Hells Angels chapter in 2009. Now, the club has a membership of over 6,467 chapters across 59 countries, making it the largest motorcycle club in the world. However, there was still a veil of mystery over the club, as many from the outside weren't quite sure what went on within. Sometimes, the Hells Angels are depicted as free-spirited men bound by brotherhood and loyalty. On the other hand, they are also depicted as a violent criminal gang, and the murder of an 18-year-old concertgoer by one of their members didn't help this reputation. Hells Angels members were essentially known as drug addicts and barroom fighters. However, law enforcement and intelligence agencies like the United States Department of Justice, the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Criminal Intelligence Service Canada, and even Europol all considered the Hells Angels an organized crime syndicate. Although the Hells Angels claim not to be a racially segregated club, members are often white men. According to Sonny Barger in a 2000 BBC interview, the club as a whole is not racist, but we probably have enough racist members that no black guy is going to get in it. He also said, if you're a motorcycle rider and you're white, you want to join the Hells Angels. If you're black, you want to join the East Bay Dragons. That's how it is, whether anyone likes it or not. We don't have no blacks, and they don't have no whites. While Barger claims the Hells Angels weren't racist, a 1983 incident proved otherwise. The Satan's Angels Motorcycle Club in Vancouver had a black member before it decided to merge with the Hells Angels in 1983. However, the San Francisco and Anchorage chapters threatened to expel the Vancouver chapter when they learned there was a black member. The issue was only resolved when the man decided to change his nationality to Hawaiian. In another case, a chapter in Windsor, England, was only granted official status in 1985 after its only black member had died in police custody. In their support, an African-American biker group known as the Chosen Few Motorcycle Club stated in a 1996 Ebony article that they didn't perceive any racial animosity from members of the Hells Angels. They also said they allowed members of the Hells Angels into their territory, where everyone parties and gets together. The Hells Angels echoed this, stating, "We don't have any Negro members," but maintained that it was because no black individuals had sought membership. It is unclear why many people joined the Hells Angels, but one common factor seems to be a sense of community. In the case of former leader George Christie, he had been drawn by the free-spiritedness of the members and wanted to be part of this close-knit community of bikers. Undercover Agent J. Dobbins also hinted at this as one of the reasons why he respected members of the club. In a law enforcement conference in El Paso, Dobbins said that the Hells Angels, even with their fearsome reputations, offered members a sense of belonging in society. "You can be, in essence, an unimportant, unknown person," Dobbins said. "When you join one of those gangs and they put that patch on your back, all of a sudden people are paying attention to you. People are buying you drinks. People are giving you drugs. Women want to put their arm around your shoulder. You're intimidating. You scare people. And to some people, that's intoxicating," he said. Therefore, it is little wonder why George Christie appeared slightly hurt by this loss of community when he was declared out bad by the club. Another thing that stands out about the Hells Angels is how seriously they expect loyalty from members. Christie appeared to have betrayed the club by leaving, and they made sure he paid for this by not only isolating him from the community, but also ensuring the general public saw him in a negative light. He even went on to serve prison time for crimes he had committed earlier, 3 years after he left the Hells Angels. The same thing played out with Dobbins when he was revealed to be an undercover agent. The threats were just a way for the club to show their disappointment at the betrayal. Despite these acts unveiling the dark side of the Hells Angels, they maintain that they are not a criminal or violent organization. Members of the club continue to assert that they are only a group of motorcycle enthusiasts from all over the world who want to ride motorcycles together and organize social events. They insist that crimes committed by any member of the Hells Angels are the sole responsibility of the parties involved and not the club as a whole.